last time this franchise took this crew, went on the road, and play? And don't count the Patriots or the Chargers, a good team, and won a game. I've never seen it. So because of that, until I do, I say I don't trust it.
You know what, Doggy? When the Lord created us, we crawl before we walk. You know that, right?
Ooh,
and there's always step one. And I don't see any reason why I can't be step one with the Miami Dolphins this year. It's a legitimate argument that can be made. They can end up having the best record in the AFC. If they pull that off, that means the road to the Super Bowl comes through South Beach, or at least nearby. And the fact is that if I don't have to worry about them going to Buffalo in the cold January evening, if I don't have to worry about them going to Kansas City, if I don't have to worry about them going to Cincinnati or Cleveland, all right, and I get to sit up there and watch them play games near South Beach, I'm looking at a team that is averaging over nearly 36 points a game, that already have scored 223 points thus far this year. Okay, they are number one in yards. They are number one in points. They got the number one passing attack. They got the number one rushing attack. And the likelihood is that if you're going to beat them, you need to count on putting up at least 25 to 30. You got to be able to do that. Now, we haven't looked at the Dolphins defense and said they're trash. We think they can improve. They're ranked 26th overall. They're ranked 19th against the pass, 20th against the rush, middle of the road. But that's usually because they're scoring in bunches. So they can take chances. They can take their foot off the gas. There's a level of urgency that's lacking because they're putting up points. And they got bum rushed by Buffalo, and I get that. That's the one game where they wet the bed and they got something to prove in regards to that. But rather than lean on the 48-20 loss that they suffered at the hands of the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo a few weeks ago, you know what I'm going to point to? I'm going to point to the same squad last year in the AFC playoff game against the Buffalo Bills, losing 34-31 with Skylar Thompson as their quarterback. And I'm going to say, well, what if this year it's Tua instead of Skylar? What if this year if the game is in Florida instead of Buffalo? Do they have a chance? You damn right they have a chance. You crawl before you walk.
Leave it to Stephen A. to be the voice of research. Those are wild and crazy times right now when you have Stephen A. Making sense of the Dolphins. I truly believe the Dolphins have a chance to win on the road. It's a very different scenario than the Buffalo game. The Dolphins historically has, not fared very well in Buffalo, but the Dolphins are going this Sunday, and Sunday night is going to be a huge game. Everybody was going to be watching. But I want to start with you, Steve. What are your thoughts about this game? It's going to be a huge game for the Dolphins. Huge expectations all over the place.
Yep, I'm not on mute. Good. No, Stephen A. Smith, I don't find myself agreeing with him too often, but he hit the nail on the head. The Dolphins have something to prove. But that's our theme this year. The Dolphins have had something to prove. Earlier this year, we talked about how the Dolphins weren't able to travel to LA last year and win a game. Did that. Unable to play the big primetime games. Went up to New England second week, Sunday Night Football. Did that. There are questions that still remain. Failed to go to Buffalo. We failed in way too many ways. Just kind of that slap in the face, that punch in the jaw, see how we react. And we've turned around, we've reacted in the right way. In general, against top teams, I think that we've positively answered a lot of questions, but there are still questions that remain. And I think every week we roll out a different wrinkle. We roll out a different type of look that people haven't seen, the teams haven't really seen. And I think that we're gonna get an answer to a lot of the questions. And again, it's going to be two of those at the same time. Can we go on the road against a big team, and can we do it in prime time? And I can't say I'm concerned, because I don't think the Eagles are the juggernaut that they're made out to be. But we'll get more of that into the keys to the game, the next segment and everything. But I'm really looking forward to going up and seeing how we can hold our own against a top team in the league, one of my top 5.
Most definitely. Matt, what are your thoughts about the huge game this Sunday night? The Dolphins travel to Philadelphia to face the Eagles.
I'm really excited about this game. It's not often that you get an opportunity to prove yourself. As Steve said, we've had some benchmark tests that we've needed to pass this season. Question marks. I think that so far so good. This game I'm more excited about than I am nervous. Like the Bills game, I'll admit, man, I know I'm the one who said 20-0, but I was also internally like, this is probably the first one of the season. And, I'm not Nostradamus here. That's what happened. Coming off 70-point game, going up there, and the Bills were just ready for the Dolphins to show them that they're still the king of the AFC East. But this game Sunday night has more potential positive impact than beating the Bills would have had. The Eagles were the Super Bowl runner-up. Every year, I think, I don't know what the statistic is, but it's not uncommon for the Super Bowl runner-up to not make the playoffs the next season. And this is an opportunity for the Dolphins to lay their claim in the hierarchy of the NFL, go in there, beat the Super Bowl runner-up, start that slide for them. This would be 2 losses in a row for the Eagles, right? Start that slide for them. And I'm going to add one more thing to this that's really cool, in my opinion. It's that the Eagles, they're no longer undefeated. The Dolphins are no longer undefeated. So there's not going to be this background noise of can they continue? Can they go undefeated? Now it's just about football. Now it's about Tua versus Jalen. Now it's about last year's rookie head coach who took him to the Super Bowl against the media darling that Mike McDaniel is. And by the way, there's a ton of substance behind Mike McDaniel as well. There's a lot of talking points on this game that really makes me excited. And one last thing, I'm ambivalent about the Eagles. If it were the Bills, the Patriots, an AFC team, I'd probably have a lot more emotion devoted to it. I'm going to be able to sit there and watch what I think is going to be a fantastic football game, and I'll make my prediction here in a few.
Eddie, what are your thoughts about his showdown? You can see what Stephen A. said. The Dolphins are making some people who are not used to be believers, but everything can go backwards if the Dolphins don't fare well this game. So what are your thoughts about Sunday's game against the Eagles?
Well, first I'll start with Stephen A. Usually I do not agree with him. Like he says, Tua only throws the ball. He still says it 2 yards down the field. He obviously does not watch football. As for the other guy, that's Mad Dog Russo, I believe. I don't like his voice. I don't like his face, and I can't stand him. I think he's an absolute freaking idiot.
Controversial.
Hey,
But other than that, I'm sure he's a great person. But because we have never beat anybody good on the road like the Ravens last year,
Exactly.
or the Chargers in the first game. That's them.
Yeah, because
crap
now
teams,
going to
whatever.
Foxborough is like everybody goes to Foxborough now, but when the Dolphins used to go to Foxborough and
Right.
win, didn't get enough credit. But please,
Hey,
I'm
they
sorry,
had us
go ahead.
0-2.
Yeah.
All the people had us 0-2 at the beginning of the year, and we won both games. As for the Eagle game, I think it's going to be a good test, but I'm not nervous like it was the Bills game, because if they lose an out-of-division game or out-of-conference game, it doesn't bug me as much. So I almost want them to rest Xavier and Connor so they don't have lingering groin issues. I think they're going to put up some points on the Eagles. I really do. I think Eichenberg proved himself last week, because that's a pretty good defensive line in Carolina, and he made no mistakes. So obviously McDaniel was right. It was his first time playing that against Buffalo. He made good adjustments, but I am really looking forward to the game. Like I said, I'm not nervous. Whatever happens, happens. But I do think they will play well on a national stage this time.
Yeah, what's really impressed me about it's going to be a huge game. But it's going to be a huge game just because of perception. Now, if the Dolphins win, they're going to say, well, they were hurt and they were they probably on the better day will not go to Philadelphia and win. If they lose, see, there you go again. They're pretender, they're frost, they're not up to par with the upper teams. The fact is that the Dolphins are on the upward. So they'll still have a lot of people out. Nobody's talking about that. We'll still Ramsey is not yet back. A-Shane is not yet back. And the offensive line, Connor Williams, Teron Armstead are not back.
Yeah.
So the Dolphins are going to get a lot of pieces. They're going to get 2 of the top 100 players in the NFL on the next month back. So that's the important thing. The Dolphins are playing not for week 6, week 7 of the year. You can see McDaniel is playing this. They're playing checkers. The Dolphins are playing chess. He's playing for the whole season. The important thing is that if the Dolphins have 3 losses at the end of the year and they get home field advantage, nobody's going to care if they lost against the Eagles, against the Bills, or whatever. The bottom line is that they need home field advantage. We go back to the rock. So we need to get that home field advantage. And he's playing the long season. He's building for the season. He's setting up the team perfectly. So it's a huge game. It's going to be a huge win when the Dolphins win this Sunday. Hopefully the Dolphins win. I think they have a very good chance, considering that, to be honest, it's true. The Eagles are not 100% either, but no team by now is 100%. So there should be no excuses. So we're not 100% that either. So, but the Dolphins should, come up with a win this weekend. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the keys to the game. I want to know what your thoughts about the keys to the game. It's a weird game considering the Eagles started the year with so much expectations. They started 5-0. They were crushing some on the running game, on the defense. They're playing well, but sometimes you can see they were not up to par. They lost both coordinators. That usually hurts some teams. Compared to last year's team, they're still were 5-0, but not as dominant as the 5-0 they were last year. So I want to start with you, Steve. What do you think of the keys to the game to winning on Sunday, the Dolphins?
I think that they're still the same team that they were last year, and just to carry on your point here, that they're not the explosive team, and I don't think they were the explosive team last year, and their defense is just really, really formidable. But if we're looking at keys to the game, first and foremost, we have to control the ball. Philadelphia Eagles are, I believe, number 2 in the league right now in time of possession. They're a team that grinds you down. The long drives, the morally defeating drives where you think you've got them stopped at 3rd and 6 and they get down to 4th and 1, and any normal team on the their own 35-yard line is going to turn around and punt in that opportunity. Instead, what they're going to do is pull out their quarterback sneak and their Philly shove, or whatever you want to call it, and they end up converting at a very, very high rate, probably second only to Lusaka Polite from the Miami Dolphins earlier in the 2000s with his conversion rate. Really can't make the mistakes. It's just like Buffalo. We're not going up against Denver, Carolina, the New York Giants here. We have to really limit the mistakes. Done a phenomenal job with penalties this year, but we really need to work on the turnovers. We can't spot teams like Philadelphia 14 points, 10 points. Can't go into those 2-score deficits. Again, the defense is very, very strong. It's who their hallmark was last year, I think. And we're going to have to give Tua time. He's fastest release in the NFL, so they're just going to have to give him enough time for that. But they're also one of the best teams against the run. And so we have the NFL's leading running team, rushing offense, going up against one of the top rushing defenses in the league. I think they've given up 65 yards per game. So I think we're going to see a couple very strong forces collide here, and we really have to set the tone. Don't feel the urgency to panic like we did up in Buffalo, I think, and really just do what we talked about earlier. McDaniel needs to stick to the script and play his game, and I think that we can win.
Matt, what are your thoughts about what the keys to the game for the Sunday's game against the Eagles?
I read today that the Dolphins lead the league both in rushing and in passing. And I don't know that I've ever experienced that. It's such a mind-blowing thing, and what they've done in the running game. We've talked about this in previous episodes. We've talked about the growth of the offensive line. and that's critical for this Sunday night. That offensive line is going to be tested. It's going to be tested as far as the run game, getting those holes open. It's also going to be tested to keep number one on his feet. So the biggest key to the game for me is the offensive line. I am thrilled with their play so far this season. They've been unbelievable. Another stat I saw was that they've given up the second fewest sacks in the league. I believe it's second fewest. And when you think of the rhetoric that was around coming into this season, it was all about keeping people healthy so that they could, stay in the game and play. The offensive line. And I also think that Jalen Hurts, I think he's a great quarterback, but I think that he can be taken advantage of. I think that he was shown to be beatable last week, but I think there's cracks in his skills, and I think that Fangio's the guy to illuminate those cracks and get the Dolphins to take advantage of those. So my keys to the game, pretty much the same as everyone else. Can't get down 14-0. Control the offensive line, both running and pass blocking, and then really, really upset Jalen Hurts. That's really where I'm going to go with this.
Absolutely. How about you, Eddie? What do you think? What do you believe are the keys to the game on Sunday against the Eagles?
Staying ahead of the chains, making them one-dimensional. You have to stop their run. You have to stop Swift. You cannot have them running the ball and then play action or Hurts running. I'd like to keep them in third and long because third and short, they're an unstoppable team and they can do a lot of play action off of that. So keep them at 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, get off the field, win the turnover battle for once. Or 3 and outs. I'll take 3 and outs and good field position to get our offense going. And I'd like to get a lead and pin our ears back. I think we're 3rd in sacks. I think we have 20 sacks for the season, which is unbelievable. I would have never thought they had that many sacks. I don't know who said that earlier, but it's quiet. It's like a quiet team that just gets to the quarterback, and somebody is always putting some kind of pressure, usually on the quarterback. There's times I'm yelling at all of them, but they get there eventually. But yeah, just stay ahead of the chains. Do not turn the ball over against that team and give them short fields, and make hurry. If you hurry Hurts, he will make a mistake, and that's what they need to do.
Absolutely. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but Liam Eichenberg, if Williams is not playing, Liam Eichenberg is the key to the game. They're so strong up the middle. So Liam Eichenberg, if he can play like the way he played last week, of course, the Panthers are not a bad defensive front, but the Eagles are probably the best defensive front on the whole league. So if Liam Eichenberg can find a way to stay steady, to control, don't make any turnover, the fumble, that bad snap, that huge mental mistake that cost us a sack on Tua, that's the key. And Big Fangio, again, I don't want to be a broken record, but Big Fangio, he knows that team. He knows what they're doing over there. We don't say it for a second, but he'll be right back. But Big Fangio knows that team. He used to be there. He knows what they're doing. He was part of the game plan for the Super Bowl. So he knows how to play Jalen Hurts. He knows what they have over there. So this defense is kind of strange. They're not a dominant defense, but when they need a stop, a couple of weeks, that you can see they can find a stop. So and they're carrying pressure. So Big Fangio can find a way to scheme again, like Eddie said, not to put the team on the 3rd and 1, and 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. The Dolphins is going to have a chance. And time of possession, if they're running the ball, they're keeping Tua and Tyreek Hill and Waddle on the field. We're going to have a rough, very very rough Okay. Steve, any last thoughts about the little game?
No, it's you brought up Eichenberg, and I'll say this: in previous times, even earlier this year when Eichenberg stepped in at left guard, and then his first game at center, it's almost as if losing the mental battle is his doom. He loses the mental battle before the ball is even snapped, and you can tell that that's what happens. And I think that's really what the difference is between last year and this year. I mean, we have Kendall Lamb. We have a replacement holding it down at left tackle. We have a replacement center, and we have who, up until 7 weeks ago, I was ready to buy his plane ticket out of Miami and Austin Jackson, and he has been playing lights out. And I think the difference year over year of what we've seen with the same players is the mental battle. You're not seeing them make those mental mistakes when the ball is snapped that we saw them do before. They're going to need that against this defensive line because the defensive line has depth and talent, and I don't know if they've yet really turned it on. So I think that that's going to be one of the biggest keys to the game. Eddie or Matt had said something. Matt, you said it. You got a point. We're tops in the league in passing and rushing, and I had said myself, establish the running game. Prove that you can run it. Well, do we really need to prove it if we can blow their doors off to the point that they have nothing to do but worry about the pass and then we establish the run at that point? I don't care. Just win, baby. That's my mentality. And the last thing is, we're not going up against a juggernaut team here that strikes and strikes and strikes. I was looking to see Phillies put up 25-34, 25-34, the last 2 weeks, 23 and 14 points against a very tough Jets defense, but they're not a juggernaut that just strikes quick. I think that we have a very good chance here. We just need to execute our game plan very, very well.
Definitely, space is going to be key. Matt, do you have any last thoughts?
No, I mentioned it a moment ago. I'm incredibly excited about it. Most of the time, it's kind of, it's a beaten dog. We've had 20 years of hope, and that was really it. And now, look, man, they put up 70 against Denver, and something like that hadn't happened in 50 years, 60 years? That's an anomaly. Then they come back and they put up 42 against the Panthers. It's the Panthers, I get it, but that's that consistency we've talked about since the very beginning. Absolutely. They in years past, I remember, Steve, I think it's the game that is such a important backdrop in your personal life. We hammered the Chargers for 37, right?
35-0.
35. Okay.
Yep.
So that was the anomaly of that particular season. Nobody expected that. Holy crap! The Chargers had a bad day, right? But now the consistency is. I had no doubt that we were going to score after the Panthers scored their second touchdown. I had no doubt. And when it happened, I was like, there we go. We're in this game. That fear, that feeling is being repressed, and I'm fine with that. I'm really excited about Sunday night. There's a part of me that wishes it was the 1 o'clock game because I'm going to be so amped one way or the other Sunday night. It's going to be difficult to go to sleep. So, looking forward to it, guys.
Absolutely. There's a storm coming to Puerto Rico on this weekend, so hopefully the storm is on Monday and they can watch the game on Sunday night. So, we'll see what happens. So, but next, we're going to go to the big finish and the top 5 power rankings.